This happened about 2 months ago. I'm Jake, and I'm 31. I usually sit behind a computer as a software developer. I thought a weekend camping trip in the Colorado Rockies would help me recharge and escape the digital noise. I rented a small cabin tucked among towering pines, close to a stream. The sky was clear, the stars shining bright, and everything felt right at first. I've never forgotten it. I set up camp. It was quiet, just me and the woods. As night fell, I settled in with a book, the soft glow of a flashlight lighting up the pages. Then I heard it. Faint chattering came from outside. It was hard to place what I was hearing, almost rhythmic. Was I imagining things? I peeked out, but saw only darkness and the rustle of leaves. I shrugged it off and went back to reading, though I felt uneasy. Around midnight I was drifting off when noise jolted me awake. Low laughter echoed from somewhere in the trees. My heart raced. I sat up, straining to listen. The laughter continued, drifting in and out like someone was messing with me. I thought maybe it was other campers, but I hadn't seen a soul since I got there. I felt cold. I wrapped my blanket tighter, trying to convince myself it was just the wind again. The next day passed without incident. I hiked, trying to enjoy the beauty around me, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. That night I decided to sit by the fire. I noticed footprints leading from my fire pit into the woods, small and almost childlike. I blinked, unsure if I was imagining things. There they were, leading into the dark. I almost followed them. Then a chill ran down my spine. Maybe it was a bad idea. By the third night I was on edge. The laughter returned, but this time it was closer. I could feel it creeping in around me. I stood by the cabin door, heart racing. I thought I saw a shadow flicker out of the corner of my eye. Was someone watching me? I was too scared to go outside. Then I heard my name, soft, low. I thought I recognized the voice, but I couldn't tell from where it came. It didn't sound right. I wanted to call out, but my voice felt trapped. Then in a moment of panic, I bolted towards the door. I flung it open and stepped outside. I looked around frantically. Nothing but the shadows of the trees standing silently. I turned to go back in, and suddenly I was met by a figure, just standing there, staring at me. My heart dropped. It felt wrong. I could barely make out what it looked like, but its eyes were dark. I remember taking a step back, and the figure stood frozen. I turned to run, but stumbled on the uneven ground. When I looked up again, it was gone. The laughter echoed again, but this time it faded into silence. I locked the door behind me, my heart pounding. I don't think I'll ever forget that trip. Maybe the mountains have secrets best left undiscovered. They're still bothering me. The next day I woke up a little later than usual. My eyes felt heavy. I started to convince myself that maybe it had all been a bad dream. The sun shone brightly through the cabin window, painting everything with warmth. I forced myself to get up, telling myself I couldn't let fear ruin my weekend. After a quick breakfast, I decided to take a long hike. I felt like I needed to show the woods I wasn't afraid of whatever was out there. I followed the same trail I had taken the first day, hoping the sunlight would wash away my anxiety. The further I walked, the more I tried to shake off the night's terror. But my mind kept going back to that shadow. Why had it been so still? I couldn't lose focus. My goal was to reconnect with nature. As I wandered deeper into the woods, I came across a clearing, a perfect spot for a picnic. I dropped my backpack and took a moment to breathe in the fresh air. That's when I noticed something on the ground, a small wooden carving, half buried among the leaves. I picked it up. It was a crudely shaped figure of a child. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Why was it here? Who had carved it? I frowned and examined it closely. There were tiny scratches, almost like writing, but I couldn't make out the words. I brushed off some dirt and suddenly heard a rustling from nearby bushes. My heart jumped again. I quickly turned to look, but saw nothing, just the wind dancing through the trees. I forced myself to focus on the carving, but the unease in my stomach only grew. Should I take it with me or leave it here? Leaning toward taking it seemed odd. Still, I couldn't just leave it alone, a lost thing in the woods. I shoved it in my pocket and headed back to the cabin. The night approached with an unexpected solemnity. I lit a fire outside, hoping the crackling flames would keep my fears at bay. It felt comforting to watch the flames dancing, but as darkness enveloped the camp, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched yet again. I pulled out the carving and set it on the table outside. There was something about it that pulled my gaze. Just then, the laughter returned, louder this time. I jumped up, looking around. The laughter was mixed with that haunting rhythm I had heard before. Panic set in again. I grabbed the carving and raced inside, locking the door behind me. Inside, I looked closely at the carving, its scrapes eerily reflecting the firelight. That's when I realized that the writing on it wasn't random. It was a name, my name. I felt my blood run cold. How could it be? What did it mean? Then came a knock on the door. A slow, deliberate knock. My breath hitched. Someone was out there after all. I knew I had to face whatever was haunting me, but I was terrified. I felt like I was running out of time. What was the carved figure trying to tell me? I opened my mouth to speak, but fear stifled my voice. And then, everything went silent. My heart raced as I stood frozen in place. The knock came again, this time more urgent. It echoed in my tiny cabin, sending ripples of fear coursing through me. I pressed my back against the door, willing myself to breathe. Was it just a trick of my mind? Or had I really heard laughter before? I had to know who or what was outside. Taking a deep breath, I turned to the window. Peering through the curtains, I saw nothing but darkness. The trees loomed over, their branches swaying like silent sentinels. My gut twisted. Whatever it wasn't going to give up. Before I could think it through, I grabbed my phone. The screen lit up the room, and I was relieved to see I still had a few bars of service. I quickly dialed 911, my hands shaking, but then I hesitated. What would I tell them? I think someone is out there? Impossible. Just then, a frigid gust swept through the cracks of the cabin, making me shiver. The knocking resumed, louder and more frantic now. I stumbled back, nearly dropping my phone. I had to do something. Was it a prank, or something worse? I opened the cabin door just enough to peek out. The night air was cool against my face, but I couldn't see anyone. The path was empty, the fire pit still glowing faintly in the dark. I stepped out cautiously, my instincts screaming at me to retreat, but I felt compelled to look further. Then I saw it, a figure standing just beyond the reach of the light. I squinted in disbelief. It looked like a child, wearing a white dress that glinted eerily. Panic gripped me, and I stumbled backward. The figure didn't move, just stood there, still as stone, staring in my direction. "Hello?" I called, my voice unsteady. "Are you okay?" It didn't answer. Instead, it raised a small hand and pointed toward the woods. I felt an icy clench around my chest. Following the gesture, I saw something glimmering on the forest floor, a reflection of moonlight or something else. I couldn't take my eyes off it. "Please, come here," I said, the urge to protect overwhelming my fear. The figure simply continued to point, and the longer I looked, the more the air felt charged with something I couldn't understand. Then, just like that, it turned and vanished into the darkness. I blinked, catching my breath, my heart pounding loudly in my ears. This was surreal. The dread I felt was soon mixed with a sudden sense of urgency. I had to find out what that child wanted. I leaned out further, searching the shadows, but it was as if the forest swallowed her whole. I couldn't ignore the drawing curiosity of the object she had pointed at. Every instinct told me to turn back, but I inched forward, heading down the trail where the reflection had been. I walked cautiously, keeping an eye out for any signs of the child. And then I found it. A small locket lying in the dirt, half buried in the leaves, glinting faintly in the moonlight. I bent down and picked it up. As I opened it, the chill creeping up my spine deepened. Inside was a picture of a girl who looked eerily familiar, her eyes matching mine. I staggered back, feeling as if the ground had vanished beneath me. I thought I knew fear, but this felt different. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. I was pulled into a cascade of questions. Who was this girl? What did it mean? And where had the child gone? That was when I heard it again, the laughter. It echoed through the trees, bright and haunting. I wasn't alone anymore. The laughter lingered in the air, a haunting melody that tangled with the rustling leaves. My breath quickened as I glanced around, heart racing, searching for its source. Was it the child, or something worse? I gripped the locket tightly, feeling the cold metal bite into my palm. I took a shaky step backward, but the urge to confront whatever was watching me pulled me forward. I had to know what it all meant. I couldn't just stand there letting the fear grip me. The forest felt alive, filled with whispers that seemed to tease at the edges of my sanity. Then I spotted movement. A shadow darted between the trees to my left. My breath caught in my throat. I turned, straining to see in the dim light. "Hello?" I called, my voice barely more than a whisper. No answer. Just the laughter, now distant, weaving through the branches. I forgot the locket for a moment, adrenaline pumping. I stepped deeper into the woods, past the edges of familiarity. The darkness closed in, and it felt as though the trees themselves were leaning closer, curious about my presence. Then I stumbled upon something, a small clearing illuminated by a soft glow. My heart raced as I stepped into the circle of light. In the center lay an old crumbling stone well. The walls were overgrown with vines, and the opening was shrouded in shadows. The glow pulsed from within, drawing me in inexplicably. Something was wrong. I could feel the air shift, heavy with a presence that sent chills cascading down my spine. I approached the well, peering into its depths. "What are you?" I murmured, my voice trembling. The laughter echoed again, closer now, almost mocking. Suddenly the glow intensified, and I squinted, trying to see. That's when I saw it, a pale hand emerging from the shadows at the bottom. It looked so fragile, delicate. My heart thudded loudly as I grabbed the edge of the well for support. "Hello?" I called again, unsure if I wanted a response. As if in answer, the figure slowly began to rise. It was the child from before, her white dress shimmering as she emerged like a wisp of smoke. I couldn't move. I felt both terrified and captivated by the sight. The child's eyes bore into mine, wide and haunting, brimming with emotion that I couldn't decipher. She pointed again, this time toward the forest floor, and I instinctively dropped to my knees, scanning for what she wanted to show me. There, nestled among the roots of an old tree, was another locket, this one glinting ominously. "Don't!" I whispered, the word escaping my lips before I could stop it. I knew I shouldn't reach for it, but the connection I felt to her willed me closer. My hand shook as I lifted the delicate locket. It felt warm against my skin, pulsing almost like a heartbeat. With trembling fingers I opened it, but before I could make sense of what I saw inside, the laughter transformed into something menacing, reverberating through the trees and enveloping me like an icy shroud. The child's expression changed, her innocent gaze hardened as she stared at me. Fear clawed at my throat as I realized this was no longer just curiosity. I was in the presence of something powerful, something that demanded attention. Then everything went dark. The world around me faded, swallowed by an endless void. I was left alone with the sound of laughter echoing in my mind, and the aching realization that I was just beginning to uncover secrets buried deep in the woods. I blinked, fighting to shake off the darkness that clung to me like a damp blanket. My head spun, and when I finally managed to focus, I found myself sprawled on the forest floor. The weight of silence pressed heavily against my ears, a stark contrast to the laughter I had heard moments before. I pushed myself up, heart racing. The well was gone. In its place, thick woods surrounded me, the tree trunks looming like silent sentinels. I could still feel a tingling warmth where the locket had rested in my palm, assuring me that it was still there. I quickly checked, and to my relief, it remained, though it no longer pulsed with warmth. Instinct cut through my confusion. I had to move. I scrambled to my feet, scanning the trees, desperate to understand what just happened. "Hello?" I called out, the sound feeling fragile in the cold air. No response. I was utterly alone, but the memory of the child's watchful eyes lingered. As I stumbled through the underbrush, I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sent a jolt of fear through me. I picked up my pace, looking for anything familiar in the crooked paths ahead. After a few minutes, I noticed a broken path leading to a clearing. I hesitated, the instinct to turn back clawing at me, but a sense of urgency drove me onward. As I entered the clearing, I almost tripped over a rock and caught myself just in time. In the middle stood a wooden cabin, decrepit and overrun by weeds. It was as if it had emerged from the earth itself, forgotten and hidden. Cautiously, I approached. The door hung ajar, creaking softly in the wind. "Is anyone here?" I called again, heart pounding. I felt an odd mix of fear and curiosity. I knew I shouldn't go inside, but the pull was too strong. The threshold groaned under my weight as I pushed the door open fully. The smell of damp wood overwhelmed me, and I stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light breaking through the grimy windows. Old furniture lay strewn about, and a feeling of neglect hung heavy in the air. But then something caught my eye, a child's drawing pinned to the wall, faded but recognizable. It was the same child, her smile stretching wide, but the background swirled with dark shapes that made my stomach churn. Just as I processed what I was seeing, I heard it, a soft giggle drifting in from outside. It sent ice down my spine. Who was laughing? I turned on my heel, adrenaline surging. Someone else was here. I hurried back outside and scanned the clearing. That's when I noticed footprints leading away from the cabin, small and hurried. They were fresh. Suddenly a quick rustle came from the bushes nearby. The laughter ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. My breath hitching in my throat, I stepped back. Whatever had been watching me was close. And then a shadow flitted past the edge of my vision. Everything told me to run, but I was paralyzed. Caught between fear and the strange desire to uncover the truth, I stood there, waiting for what would come next. I stood frozen, heart drumming in my chest as the air thickened around me. The shadow had vanished, but something felt very real and menacing just beyond the trees. The silence was almost mocking. I forced myself to take a deep breath and stepped back, away from the cabin. I needed to know what or who had laughed. My legs seemed to move of their own accord, driven by a mix of dread and fascination. I followed the footprints leading deeper into the thicket. They were small, but distinct, the kind a child might leave behind. The idea that a child was out here alone made my pulse quicken, filling me with unease. After a few moments of pushing through underbrush, I came to a halt. Ahead of me lay a dense cluster of trees, their branches twisted and gnarled. It almost looked like a natural barrier, a wall of wood. But there, just at the edge, something glinted in the faint light. I stepped closer, curiosity pulling me in. As I knelt down, clearing away twigs and leaves, I uncovered a small silver charm. It was shaped like a locket identical to the one in my pocket. My heart lurched. How did this get here? Was it a sign? Suddenly, the laughter returned. It was higher now, more frantic, twisting through the air like a dart. I whipped around, but no one was there. The sound faded just as quickly as it had come. I was left with only the whisper of rustling leaves. I felt a shiver run down my spine. A sudden thought hit me. What if the child from the drawing was real? What if she was lost? I couldn't let fear root me in place. I straightened and moved further along the edge of the thicket. scanning for any signs of movement or a way through. Then I saw it, a flash of color hiding behind a tree trunk. Heart racing, I called out again, "Hello? Is someone there?" Nothing, just more silence. I edged forward, the dense foliage thickening around me. As I reached the base of the tree, I paused. Had someone just darted behind that trunk, or was my mind playing tricks on me? Before I could decide, the ground beneath me shifted. I stumbled as a small figure burst through the thicket, rushing past me. It was the child from the drawing, wide-eyed, hair wild, her face streaked with dirt. "Come play," she cried, glancing back at me with a smile that was both inviting and chilling. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. Something in her gaze sent a cold wave through me, an inexplicable sense of urgency. I needed to follow her, to understand what was happening. As my feet moved of their own accord, I heard a rustle behind me. I turned, and that's when I saw it. Something dark and massive, not far from where I stood, lurking just beyond the trees, watching. My heart pounded, swallowed by fear. "Who are you?" I gasped. But the child had vanished. All that remained was the echo of her laughter, merging with the rustling leaves. I was not alone, and the presence behind me meant I needed to run. But to where? I took off running, the underbrush scratching at my legs as I broke through the thicket. My pulse raced, fueled by adrenaline and sheer terror. The laughter echoed in my mind, taunting me. I couldn't shake the image of the child, her wild eyes and that smile. Something was off about her. I stumbled back to the edge of the clearing where the cabin stood, safe ground, or so I hoped. But my heart sank as I turned toward the structure. It loomed dark and foreboding against the trees, the windows like empty eyes. I could still feel that dark presence lurking behind me, waiting. I dashed up the cabin steps, my hands trembling as I fumbled for the door. I needed to lock out whatever followed me. When I finally got it open, I nearly collided with the wooden frame. I slammed the door and twisted the latch, breathing heavily as I leaned my back against the door. The silence inside was suffocating, but there was no sense of relief. I scanned the room, the dusty floor, cobwebbed corners and old furniture. Nothing looked out of place. But I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. Maybe the cabin offered some kind of shelter, but dread tightened around me like a noose. I glanced through the grimy window, hoping to catch a glimpse of anything out there. The trees swayed gently, shadows dancing like specters. My heart dropped when I saw it. Movement again. A shape slipped between the trees, almost human, but not quite. It was too tall, too angular, and it glided more than it walked. Panic bubbled in my chest. I stepped back, away from the window. Was it the same presence I felt before? The memory of the child gripped me. Had she led me into a trap? I grabbed hold of the locket in my pocket. Holding it grounded me, a reminder that I had to keep going. It might have been a sign. It might hold the key to this mystery. Then I noticed a soft tapping sound coming from deeper within the cabin. It was rhythmic, like someone tapping their fingers on the floor. The hairs on my arms stood on end. I couldn't ignore it. It felt like a call, urging me to investigate. "Hello," I called, surprised at how my voice trembled. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it another spirit, or something human, lost and in need of help? I moved down the hall, toward the darker part of the cabin. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. With each step, doubt crept in. What if this wasn't just a child? What if something worse was waiting? Then I reached a small room. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning me inside. Gathering my courage, I pushed it open, and that's when I saw it. An old music box sitting atop a dusty dresser, its metal surface glinting under the dim light. The tapping wasn't human. It was the music box playing a haunting tune, the notes mingling with the air like a forgotten memory. It was beautiful and yet filled with sorrow. But it wasn't just a song, it was familiar, that melody. It was the same one that played in my dreams. I couldn't believe it. I took a step closer, compelled to understand, but I knew, deep down, that probing further could unearth something sinister. Before I could decide, the door slammed shut behind me with a loud bang. I spun around in horror. I was trapped. And then I heard it again. The girl's laughter, now layered with a chilling undertone. I was not safe at all. The walls of the small room felt like they were closing in on me. The sudden, deafening silence after the door slammed made my heart race. I turned back to the music box. Its melody lingered in the air, a ghostly echo of something I couldn't quite grasp. I reached for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic began to rise again, tightening my throat. I pulled and pushed against the door, but it felt like a solid wall. I was trapped, not just in the room, but in this nightmare. The laughter of the girl crept closer, wrapping around me like a cold fog. "Let me out!" I yelled, my voice trembling. Nothing answered but the soft spinning of the music box. I backed away from the door and glanced back at the dresser. The dancing notes seemed to pull me, urging me to listen. I remembered the dreams, the dark figures, and the girl with her wide grin. Torn between flight or investigation, I stepped closer to the music box. My fingers brushed the cool metal, and the moment I touched it, the laughter grew louder, almost deafening. I stumbled back in shock but couldn't look away. It was then I noticed something different about the box. There was an engraving under the lid, a delicate etching of a girl, one that looked like the same wild-eyed child who haunted my thoughts. My breath hitched. Why was this music box important? And who was she? Suddenly the room shifted. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, moving with purpose. I could no longer tell if they were just my imagination or something more. I tried to shake the fear, but it gripped me tighter. The tapping had stopped, replaced by a deeper, more rhythmic heartbeat I could feel in my chest. I needed to break free from this trap. My heart thudded in my ears as I approached the door again, desperation lending me strength. I knocked hard against it, my fists pounding like thunder. "Please, somebody!" Silence once more. Then I heard it. Not the girl's laughter this time, but a soft, disembodied voice shimmering through the air. "Help me." I froze. The voice was faint but unmistakable. It coaxed me, wrapping around my thoughts much like the melody had. Was it the girl's voice? What did she want? I glanced back at the music box, the etching burning into memory. Before I could decide, the door creaked open slightly, as if it was teasing me. My breath hitched again. I had to make a choice. Stand and face whatever lay beyond this room, or stay, knowing that the answer might be just out of reach. As I pushed the door open, it fell wide, and a wave of cool air rushed over me. But as I prepared to step through, the shadowy figure from earlier emerged from the darkness, standing in the hall. This time, there was no doubt. I was not alone. I gasped, backing away just as it reached for me. Everything in me screamed to run, but I was already committed. The encounter had begun, and I had no way to know how it would end. I stood frozen, watching the shadows slowly coalesce into a more recognizable shape. It was indistinct at first, flickering like an old film reel, but there was something hauntingly familiar about it. My mind raced. Should I run? Should I confront it? The pull of the music box still tugged at the back of my thoughts, tying my focus to this moment. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. I felt vulnerable, the weight of the moment pushing me deeper into the confines of my fear. The figure didn't move, it just watched me, with a stillness that felt like it could swallow me whole. Then, without warning, it lunged forward and I turned, every instinct telling me to flee. I dashed through the doorway, heart in my throat, and stumbled into the darkened hallway beyond. The cool air hit me like a slap, but I had no time to feel relief. I had to get away from that thing. I ran, the rhythm of my frantic footsteps echoing against the wooden floor. Each step took me further into the shadows, but as I moved, I could still hear the music box playing its haunting tune from behind me, beckoning me back. It was dizzying. Why was I still drawn to it? Rounding a corner, I skidded to a stop. There was a staircase leading down into further darkness. Doubt knotted in my stomach, but I could hear the faint whispers getting louder, the words tumbling together into something resembling urgency. Help me. Find it. The girl's voice. It had to be hers. Without thinking, I bounded down the stairs, gripping the railing for support. The uncertainty gripped me again, this desire to understand what was happening fueling my steps. As I reached the bottom, I found myself in a small, dimly lit room filled with dusty boxes and forgotten furniture. It felt like a long-abandoned space, but there was a sense of purpose in its chaos. I scanned the room, hoping to find something, anything, that could explain the connection. That's when I saw it. A small, hidden compartment at the back of the room, its edge barely visible under a layer of dust. The urgency grew, and I approached it cautiously. My fingers trembled as I pulled it open, revealing a neatly folded piece of paper inside. I unfolded it, heart racing. It was old, faded, but legible. The words on the page sent shivers down my spine. The music box has secrets. Before I could process what that meant, the shadows began to twist and swirl around me, solidifying into figures that crowded the corners of the room. Panic surged through me again, and my breath quickened. I was not alone in this space. Realizing I had triggered something, I rushed to return the paper to its hiding place, but the figures started closing in. I felt their cold presence, a chilling reminder of how thin the veil between us and whatever this was stretched. Looking back, I saw the girl again. Her expression changed now, a mixture of anger and sorrow. "Help me," she cried out, her voice piercing through the chaos. I stumbled back, drowning in confusion and fear, unsure whether to help her or flee from the unseen threat surrounding me. What if the answer lay with her? What if it didn't? The weight of uncertainty crashed down, and the world around me faded, leaving behind only the melody, the whispers, and the girl's desperate plea. The next thing I knew, I was jolted awake on the floor of the cabin, disoriented and breathing heavily, as if surfacing from an abyss. The shadows from the dark corners of the room looked less threatening now, yet something was undeniably off. The music box lay open beside me, still echoing the same haunting melody. But I was alone. Panic sparked in my chest. Where were the shadows? Where was the girl? I pulled myself up and paced around, sensing the urgency of my situation. The weight of lingering fear made me hyper-aware, as if the air itself could suffocate me. I emerged from the cabin. The early morning light struggled to pierce through the dense trees, creating long shadows that danced over the ground. The cool air felt refreshing, but not enough to evaporate the unease lingering from the night's horrors. Somehow I needed answers. There had to be something here that explained all of it. I hesitated, recoiling from the inkling of dread that hovered at the edge of my mind, but I forced my feet forward and began to explore surrounding the cabin. As I wandered deeper into the woods, I stumbled upon a small clearing, the sunlight streaming through the branches overhead. In the center stood an old wooden swing, swaying gently as if inviting me to come closer. The sight triggered an emotion I struggled to place, a fleeting sense of nostalgia tinged with despair. I walked over, and that's when I noticed something half hidden beneath the swing. As I knelt down to examine it, my stomach dropped. It was another locket, identical to the two I had found before, glimmering faintly against the forest floor. I picked it up, feeling the same warmth wash over me as I did with the others. My heart raced, realizing these were not mere trinkets. There was a connection, a thread tying together whatever had been haunting me in these woods. Each locket was a piece of a puzzle I had yet to grasp. "Why are you doing this?" I found myself whispering to the trees, feeling foolish and desperate. "What do you want from me?" No answer, of course, just the rustling leaves that seemed to mock my solitude. Still, I clutched the locket tightly. Suddenly, A sound broke the silence, a faint giggle dancing on the breeze. It gripped me. I wasn't alone. I spun around, scanning the clearing, but nothing revealed itself. Then faint whispers drifted through the air, more coherent this time. "Help me, find me." I felt the pull again, a thirst for understanding. Those words echoed. They were an invitation and a warning all at once. It dawned on me that the girl wasn't just lost. She was guiding me toward something. I took a breath and steadied myself, scanning the surroundings for the path that might lead me deeper into the woods, recalling the child's earlier gesture toward the trees. Whatever fear clung to my mind, it shifted toward a determination to uncover the truth. With each step I took, the whispers seemed to guide me, leading me down a weather-worn trail. The forest enveloped me, and as the light began to fade, I knew I couldn't turn back. I had to continue forward. Finally, I reached an old stone structure, half buried and cloaked in moss. My heart quickened. Part of me felt that whatever I had been seeking lay within. It looked like an entrance to something buried long ago, perhaps a way to uncover the truth behind the shadows of the woods. I knelt to examine it closely. The entrance was dark, a gaping mouth threatening to swallow me whole. But I had come too far to turn back now. Taking another deep breath, I stepped inside. As darkness wrapped around me, the whispers faded until they were replaced by something else, a rhythmic beating, synchronized with my own pounding heart. I moved deeper, urging myself to push past the fear coiling in my gut. Then came the laughter again, this time bright and terrifying, echoing around the space. The girl's face, the last image I had of her, swayed before my eyes, her expression shifting. In that moment, I understood. I needed to confront the truth, no matter how unsettling it was. It was like being swept into a current, an irresistible force that had led me to this place. It was as if the forest, the music box, and the sense of familiarity all intertwined. Before I could react, the laughter transformed into a cacophony of voices, a torrent of echoes weaving around me. "Help me! Help us!" they cried. And just as that wave of sound crashed over me, a flash of light erupted from the depths of the room, illuminating a circle of figures caught in the act of playing, a group of children, faces aglow with innocence. But at the center sat a familiar figure, eyes dark like shadows, staring straight at me. I found myself paralyzed by the sights. Flooded with emotion, I understood that the unresolved longing and fear had coalesced into this moment. As the figures twirled and danced within their ethereal glow, I felt a tranquil acceptance wash over me. Outside, the trees rustled gently like a lullaby. I had not come to banish what haunted these woods, only to understand that every thread woven into their fabric contained unknown stories, some left untold. As I backed away from the spectacle, something stirred within me, a bittersweet truth that maybe not everything needed to be resolved, not all mysteries unraveled. With every step back into the shadows of the forest, the laughter faded, leaving only the echo of questions in the air, ones that would linger long after my visit. For I would leave this place changed, forever caught between nature's beauty and the uncanny bond that remained with me, unresolved and lingering, like shadows that follow. The locket pulsing in my pocket reminded me of it all, a promise of the secrets that still lay hidden in the depths of the woods. I didn't dare look back as I emerged from the thicket, but the whispering laughter faded into the rustling leaves, lingering in that thin space between reality and imagination.